All right, thanks for joining us again. Scruffy Politics here. Stimpy over here in Detroit metro area, and we got Steve-O in Chicago. So today we're going to talk about Rudy Giuliani.
In the Chicago suburbs, not
Yes, Chicago suburbs.
Chicago. I would never want to live in Cook County.
Yeah, no one wants to live in Chicago. Except Lori Lightfoot.
Oh, yeah, she's terrible.
So, okay. Steve, what's your take on Giuliani?
Oh, Giuliani. The guy who he couldn't make it to court because he wasn't feeling good, or he was ill, or he's not in good health. So the judge was actually very smart, said, okay, as long as you don't go anywhere for 30 days before court and for 30 days after court. Well, Giuliani apparently didn't want to sign that, and he went to court then because he knew he wanted to go to Trump's inauguration. But no, Giuliani, he is Mayor Rudy Giuliani. Back in 2001, back in 2002, 2003, in the early 2000s, he was so respected. He showed leadership when 9/11 happened. After 9/11 happened, it didn't matter if you were a Democrat, Republican. He was the man. He was the man. Now, after he got involved with Donald Trump and everything, I think the guy has gone loony, and he sold his soul. He went from America's mayor to now he's gone bankrupt because he's been sued, and he's had so many allegations against him. He's gone berserk. The guy is a Looney Tune now, and now it's all because he's kissing Trump's toes, or kissing Trump's butt right now. He's and he's gone broke also because of Trump. He's never had Trump pay him for when he's defended Trump. And Trump is just kind of, I'm sure Trump is laughing at him right now. He's lost his daughter over this. His daughter is like, my dad's gone crazy. So he is one of those MAGA loyalists who will kiss Trump's ass and not realize that it's hurting him in the long run. Yeah.
Well, I think this all started because obviously he had the defamation case where he had a big judgment against him, and that comes from the two women there in Atlanta that were counting votes. Now, there was a lot of things that did not add up about that election, a lot of irregularities, and so Giuliani was kind of in charge of investigating and trying to find acts of impropriety, and they found this video where they were pulling ballots out from underneath the table or whatever. Now, to me, that is a failure of the local law authorities, because, Brad Raffensperger, the Secretary of State, after the fact said, oh, well, we did an investigation and looked into that and we didn't find anything wrong with it. Well, you didn't share that with the nation, Brad. Why wasn't, everybody saw that and it looked strange. So when you have the entire United States population seeing something on TV that looks strange, you are required to offer an explanation. Why wasn't some law enforcement official coming forward saying, hey, we will investigate this and we will let you know what we find? And then they should have came back after like 2-3 weeks and said, we found nothing wrong with it. And at that point, it should have stopped and Giuliani should have shut his mouth. But law enforcement was like nowhere to be found in that whole process. It left everybody feeling like nobody knew what was going on there. Giuliani kept running his mouth off. And Democrats have created this environment. I think they did it with several people. Giuliani was just one of them. But they were very good at figuring out what they did. I think somehow was they figured out, like, if we can bring cases in areas where we have Democrat strongholds and high Democrat populations, so that if we get a jury, we can win, because we'll get a jury of all Trump haters, and it doesn't matter really what the crime is. We'll get the judgment against them. Now, I'm not saying what Giuliani did was right, but I don't think that he should have went as far as he did. I don't think he should have said the things that he did about those two women. What he should have done, and he knew better because he was a federal prosecutor, What he should have done was, got local authorities involved, investigate this, and let's have a hearing or a press conference where and then that should be the end of it. You drop it. So, but I do think that the judgment is out of control. I mean, it's unbelievable. There's plenty of people in similar situations that have been defamed or had death threats. I mean, people always throw this out. Oh, they got death threats. Guess what? Everybody gets death threats these days. Anybody that's on TV gets death threats. I mean, for crying out loud, the kid that they said was making fun of the Indian, which was a completely made up story. I mean, he ended up winning against like 3 media organizations. That kid and his whole family were getting death threats, for crying out loud. People didn't even know why, because they thought he was mean to an Indian, So that's what I think. I think Giuliani went too far. I think that he probably should have been held accountable for, statements where he made them come across as criminals, because there was no court case or adjudication that said that. But at the same time, I think Democrats were very successful. They did it with several people. In fact, it's still ongoing. Do you know in several states, there's still a lot of people that they have court cases against for this. They say they were trying to subvert the election because they came up with fake electors. That's still going on. I know here in Michigan, I think there's like 5 or 6 people that are still going through the court process for supposedly trying to subvert the election.
Oh, geez. Well, trying to do anything illegal in an election is wrong. But still, there was no proof. Donald Trump lost all his cases, and I don't think I don't think all of these judges are rigged and anti-Trump. There were a lot of Republican judges who probably voted for Trump that dismissed the all these cases of voter fraud and all that crap. But
the biggest mistake that Democrats made through that whole election was explaining themselves. What Democrats did was they sat back and they said, "We got the numbers, we won. Everybody else can shut the hell up. You don't have the right to ask the questions. If you do, you're being unpatriotic or undemocratic. You're going against democracy." And that was wrong of them. I mean, if it was legitimate and they had nothing to lose, why wouldn't the Democrats come forward and say, "Let's look into this, let's have an investigation," and then hold it up to the American people and say, "Look here, we won legitimately, so we can stop this conversation. Everybody can feel good about it. We know for a fact Joe Biden won fair and square." But they wouldn't do that. All they did was sit back and say, "No, that's bullcrap. You don't know what you're talking about. We won. Shut up. Go home. You lost. You're a big loser. Loser." That's what the Democrats did. And then what happened? You had an entire country that just kept building their rage over it. Because if America is truly the home of democracy, you're telling me we can't ask a question about an election? Like, that's out of bounds now? We can't ask a question. Like, I can't ask, why did they say that they had to stop counting because there was a water main break when we later found out it was a leaky toilet? Why did they put that out on the media election night when they're counting votes? Oh, we have to stop. We have a massive water main break and the whole building's flooding. And then you find out after the fact it was a leaky toilet or something? What?
Well,
I'm not allowed to ask a question about that? That seems really suspect.
Well, I have to say this. So Trump said if he loses, the election is rigged. So how does he know this past election was not rigged? I'm sure if he knew it was rigged in his favor, he would not say anything about it being rigged. And wow, once he won the election, this past November, you never heard him talk about anything being rigged in this election. But boy, I bet you if he would have lost Wisconsin or Pennsylvania, I'm sure there would have been him complaining about a rigged system.
Well, I agree that he has said that proactively, and that probably was part of a strategy to win the psychological war on his behalf. But 2020 was a unique situation because of COVID. I mean, it was something that never really took place before. And my take on it is, there was not fraud in the traditional sense. The way that Democrats won, I think, in 2020, where it probably was not really deservedly so, was you just had very odd situations where, in most states it says that if you're going to change the election laws, the ones that have been used the last 30 years, that's got to be an act of the state Congress. So like in Pennsylvania, the House of Representatives and Senators have to come together and agree, okay, we're going to make this change to the election rules. But what happened in COVID was several Secretary of States, like in Pennsylvania and in Michigan, they just started making up rules. Like, oh, we've been doing it this way for 30 years, but we're going to change it this time because COVID and people are afraid. So that gives us the power without going to the state Congress to change this rule and allow us to count votes for an extra 10 days after the election, or to ballot cure, or all these different things. Nobody had ever done that before. And I think somebody like Mark Elias, the famous Democrat lawyer, was smart enough to realize, you know what, when this stuff goes to court, there's a congressional mandated date that you have to certify the vote for. This will never get worked through court before that date. So there's no way you can win. It's the same thing that happened to Al Gore. The reason Al Gore lost in the Supreme Court was because he ran up to the certification date. It's in the Congress. You can't avoid it. So the way elections work in the United States is you have an election. If it's within 1%, you can do a recount, but you have a certification date, you have to certify. And once it's certified, you're never going back. So once they certified Joe Biden as the winner, it didn't matter what you found. You were never going to go back and relook at that.
Well, time is almost up, but back to the main point of Giuliani is, I think Giuliani did this all by himself. It's his own fault why he is in the situation he's in. I think he's a liar. He's a fraud. That's just my opinion. I don't think he was probably at one time in life a good guy, but then when he started hanging in the Trump crowd, it totally messed him up. That's why his daughter doesn't talk to him, or I don't think his daughter talks to him anymore or has much of a relationship with him, because he's gone cuckoo. I mean the guy is, he's got, like I said at the beginning, from America's mayor up here to a Looney Tune, and I'm sure Trump is laughing at him. I'm sure Trump behind his back is laughing and saying, "Oh, I didn't have to pay the guy any money. The guy kisses my ass." I'm sure of it. So, Giuliani.
Well, if he was really that way, why wouldn't Giuliani write a book and why isn't he out doing interviews and telling everybody that Trump isn't paying me and Trump's laughing at me and I ruined my life and Trump doesn't give a damn? And
because Giuliani is brainwashed and is kissing Trump's ass all the time. I mean, Giuliani, he's not all there anymore. In a way, I feel bad for that, but he did it to himself. It's kind of like if, when a teenager, hangs with a really good group of kids, but then they get, they see the bad group in high school and hang with the bad group, and then they turn into like a bad kid, and then their life goes, crappy and astray, and they're not getting the A's anymore, they're getting the D's and the F's. Yeah. And instead of, and that's how Giuliani has gone now, and I don't think there's any coming back from this. The guy made his own bed. He did it to himself. He should have known. Well, he used to be a really smart guy, a lawyer, a really good leader in New York. When 9/11 happened, and now he's gone downhill. And it's unfortunate to see in some ways, but in some ways you just got to say this is what happens when you're always kissing Trump's ass and you join the Trump cult. Is this may happen to you? Yeah.
Yep. All right. Well, we'll leave it there. So thanks for tuning in, and tune in for the next one. Hey, see you later.
See ya.